Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry to be a scooch late. My Zoom kicked me out literally just as things were starting up. But hello, my name is Alexis Williams. I am the Associate AD here at the Playwrights Realm. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, I just want to acknowledge that the Realm is located on the traditional unceded territories of Lenape. Colonization is an ongoing process that continues to impact the lives and lands of Native communities. In addition to the physical lands that we occupy today, the platforms, technology, and equipment that we are using consume resources that are based in physical lands and that are not universally accessible to all peoples and communities. We just shared a link for all those who would like to learn more about the spaces we occupy. So yeah, and with that, would like to invite Preston and LARISSA to turn your cameras on. Hello. Thank you both so much for being here. Sorry that literally as this was starting, my Zoom was just crashed. So happy to be back. Yeah, and we're here to talk about submissions and cracking the submission code, but figured first off, it might be useful just to get to hear a bit about everybody who is on this Zoom. So again, my name's Alexis. I am a panelist and also a moderator today for you. The Associate AD here at the Realm. I've been here about 3 years, have worked in various other spheres in the theater before my time here at the Realm, have read for many different organizations through my time, and really excited just to be here to chat with everyone. And let's go over to LARISSA. Just a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. So I'm LARISSA, LURY, she, her. I am on Piro Manso, Tiwa, and Apache land in southern New Mexico. And I'm a director. I am a sometime deviser. I used to be an acrobat. And I teach at New Mexico State University. And I came to the Realm through, I feel like, a million different threads. So I've been reading for the Realm for a gajillion years, it feels like anyway. But I was introduced to Catherine Kovner by Jacob Padron, who came out to see a new play festival that I was directing for when I was in grad school. And then my friend Nicole Watson, who I'm sure many of you know and love her. She's amazing. So she was organizing readers at the Realm when I was just out of grad school and like looking for more work again and wanting to get to know more writers and wanting to get to know more people's work and what was, what the trends were in writing at the time. And then also just a lot of different playwrights that I was collaborating with and still collaborate with were being supported by the Realm, which was amazing. And so getting to be a part of the readings that were taking place there and some of the development processes that were going on. So yeah, that's how I'm here.
Hi, I'm Preston CHOI, he, him. Currently on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay in La Jolla, California. And I was introduced, and I'm a playwright, introduced to the Realm sort of soon after undergrad, where one of our professors, Laura Schott, was like, you should apply to the Realm. They're good people, they treat you well. And so I just applied. I was just like, I want to be a playwright, and this is what you do. You just apply to everything. But applying to the Realm, just sort of like, and that whole process of just like getting to understand the Realm better, and eventually just after like years of applying, being a part of the program. I was a part of Scratchpad this past year, and was able to be a reader this past year as well. But yeah, just like from that first application, just sort of like starting a relationship with the Realm and Alexis specifically, who's been really looking out for me when I just started out. So yeah, I'm grateful to be here.
So thrilled to have you both in this chat. So yeah, I mean, we'll talk a bit about like our applications and submissions, but also happy to confab on submissions in general, and just to use the time at the end, we'll take some questions. There's a Q&A feature for that, all that jazz. But the first of the planned questions that I have on this little list is, from everyone's perspectives, what are we looking for, and who should apply to these programs? Do I want to answer it first, or do I want to have one of you take the first stab at it? I'll do it. So, I mean, for us, our open submissions and open applications are for our two programs: our writing fellowship, which is basically 9 months of intensive work, where a writer comes in and basically develops a play over that amount of time. So there's like an internal workshop, a bunch of writers group meetings with the fellows. There are 4 fellows, chats with like design dramaturgs and consultants, all culminating in final public presentations, which were just, music stand readings, or last year on Zoom, featuring like the plays at the very end of the year. So that's the fellowship. It's open and accessible to folks who are within commuting distance of New York, since it meets a lot, and we meet here, and we're getting back to the land where we're meeting in person, or we're Zooming, but we're going to be back in person very soon. And then there's the Scratchpad series, which is open to writers all across the country, and it's just a 15-hour workshop of a play of theirs, to allow them the chance to get to dig into something they want to dig into. There can be an open public presentation at the end if the writer wants. There also doesn't have to be, it can just be, would love time in a room with actors and a director to sort of, focus on, just to dig into the piece. And even with Scratchpad, we try to engage with the writers as the realm, like leading up to that time, just back and forth with drafts and whatnot. So, in terms of like what we're looking for, we're a theater for early career emerging writers, and folks can be emerging at any age. So there is no like age limit. There's none of that. But we're really looking for folks that want to spend time developing the piece with us, folks with exciting voices, telling stories that we haven't seen before, or in ways that feel new, but also that like really want to use the time to like dig into the work. It's not a thing where it's just like, cool, it's just a reading series, like this rehearses for 2 seconds and then it's up. We really want folks that like want to use the time to dig into the work. Yeah, so emerging folks who want to dig into the work, I feel like, is with exciting voices is what I think I would say. Larissa, like your perspectives as a reader, or Preston, your perspectives as a reader / Scratchpad participant? Who do I want to make go first? Preston. What do you think? And what was your experience like?
Yeah. I think I was definitely looking for, an opportunity to like develop a script with people who had the time and resources to like allow that to happen, and like for it to flourish. And I think that's what I was hoping for. It was like I applied to Scratchpad also because it was free. I was looking for a way to participate in new play development without having to pay to be a part of it. And then the fact that like location wasn't an issue, and so many things about just the program were so taken into account. Like anyone can be a playwright, therefore anything can be a part of like working with someone, just considering anything. It's just like, what's your schedule? Like, what's your job? Like, do you have children? Do you like all these different aspects are just sort of like being looked after. And I was like, oh, they care about me as a person and not just like, am I writing a play that might be successful one day that they say they had a hand in? It's like, no, they're like, who are you? What are you trying to say? Or what are you telling me? Want to help in that, what you're trying to say. Very circling around the point. But yeah, it was just time, space, opportunities in a clear sort of like chunk of time to work on a play that I was like, I need other people, and they are very good at getting other people. They themselves is like folks who can speak to it dramaturgically, and then like finding actors and paying them so that everyone yeah, just asking your friends to read for free or pizza somewhere. It's like an actual curated experience to really help the play grow in a way it couldn't without it. I think that's
amazing. Well, and Larissa, would love to hear you, like, as a reader, what are some things that you're looking for, or things that tell you pretty quickly if a play or a writer might be a good, you've read first for a while. So like, I feel like,
Yeah. So I mean, one of the things that I feel like is special about Playwrights Realm is how much in your mission statement, in the things that you sort of say to us as readers, emphasize boldness. And so when I'm reading, I try to think, not just in terms of some like overall judgment of the play, but really, is this play a fit for Playwrights Realm? And when I think about what is a fit for Playwrights Realm, I think about that spirit of adventurousness and that spirit of offering the way that the story gets told, as well as what the story is offering some kind of perspective that feels new in some way. And I get really excited about when I'm reading a script and I see that the writer is speaking to something that feels truthful, which doesn't mean, like Ariane Minushkin has this thing where she says, search for the true, not the realistic. Whether or not something is in the realm of realism, that the world feels truthful in some way, which to me is also sort of a sign that the writer is really invested in what they're writing about, and that they care deeply about the world that they're creating and sharing. And so I feel like I can feel that pretty early on in a read. And then I get really excited about just seeing a writer try new things. And I think this is sort of to your point, Alexis, you were talking about, and Preston too, talking about like, this is about the writer, not just about the play. I think that that's something in the way that as readers we're sort of asked to approach looking at the plays is, what is this writer's voice? Who is this writer? That it's not just about that specific play, but what is it that the writer is working towards and cultivating? And that's where it feels like Playwrights Realm might be able to come in, and through the network of writers and the writers group, through the people who work at the Realm, through the actors that are brought in, that there's a sense of that people are really on board to sort of see what the writer is about, what the writer's trying to do, and to help the writer do that, as opposed to trying to fit some idea of what the play should be according to somebody else's criteria.
I love how you just said all of that. And yeah. And I mean, also, I feel like to like a practical tidbit, like to that point, a thing that I often do look at is we've scaled back our applications in recent years. So it's literally like synopsis and like what development has the play undergone thus far, and like what are you still questioning, what are you looking to explore? And I often like do look at those answers, and since it shows it, I might have my thoughts, but I also want to hear what other folks are saying they're still investigating within the work, because it sort of shows that they're, thinking about it, they're wanting to dig in, they're wanting to develop. And I mean, bluntly, a giant pet peeve is when you get to that question and, and folks basically don't answer it. It's just like, it had a Zoom reading, period, saying nothing else. It's like, cool, this isn't really giving me insight into what else you want to do with it. Do you want to do anything with it? Do you want a development? Or, and now I just need to like see it on its feet to figure out the next steps. And it's like, cool, this doesn't result in a production, and why? So like, a little pro tip to say, yeah, Larissa.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I feel like, I don't know, having worked on a bunch of applications myself for things too, I feel like sometimes we're hesitant to point towards the things that we see as flaws, because we're like, don't pay attention to that thing. But actually, it's really useful. So as a reader, if I come across something and I'm thinking, hey, this character feels really flat. It just doesn't, it feels like this character is contrived, or the playwright just hasn't figured out who this person is yet. That then if I get to the playwright's goals and they're saying, I'm trying to figure out this, I'm like, yeah, they know exactly what needs to happen here. And so getting, being specific about those things is really helpful and shows that, you, shows what you're thinking about as a writer, and like makes us feel confidence in you, and in the things that you're looking to do with the play.
Yeah, I forgot to like mute myself then, but like, yes, that times a million, particularly, and I feel like this can be probably stated for like, whatever, I'm going to say this, people can choose to believe it or not, for anything that you're applying to that is like a developmental opportunity. Like if they're asking you this question of like, what do you want to explore more, then, then answer it. Cause folks are still, not saying it isn't going to make whoever's reading it not see that. They're just going to not necessarily think that you're seeing that as something you want to deal with or to spend time focusing on. And yeah. Amazing. Well, Preston, I'm going to kind of kick it back to you. Not kind of, I'm going to kick it back to you. But would love to hear, you touched on this a little bit, but like, you've applied multiple times. What kept you coming back, and how did your applications change year to year?
Yeah. I applied each time because I was like, well, the first time I applied, it was, I was just like throwing plays out everywhere. I think as some people are just like, I was like, this is what, just like, what's available? What can I submit to? How can I work as a playwright? Just very sort of like, I must work immediately. And thankfully, I sort of got to the point where I got to have an interview with like the Realm and just be like, actually just have someone actually be like, so you wrote this play, here are questions. And I was like, oh, right, I need to be able to talk about what this is and what I actually want to do with it. And I think at that stage, I truly didn't fully have a strong idea about what I wanted to do with it. I think at the time I was just like, I need more people to hear it. And I was like, that's not really what a developmental process is for. It's just having more people hear it. It's just like, you should also want to work on it too. They're just different things. But I think from that conversation, I just realized like, oh, what I actually want to maybe work on this play after I actually have to explain it to someone on the phone in person with y'all, just like, and this type of questions you asked, and sort of like, what are you explicitly trying to do? Or how would you want to spend this time? And that helped me take a moment and be like, oh, I really should figure that out. And so for the next year when I applied, it was sort of like, I think I got a little more focused, a little more, it's like, okay, here's what I know about the play and here's what I don't. And it was a different play this time. I was like, here's what I think I'm certain, and here's what I want to work through. And I was like, pretty proud of that one, sent it in, got to talk with y'all again. And another sort of like critical question, I was just sort of like, I think that play as well, I had a lot of questions, but I this time knew that I was like, to know going in, I was like, here's what I really want to work on. And then finally last year I applied. And I think this one was the most specific plan I set in. I was like, this character with this arc, with these actions, this part of the structure, this thing, right? It's just had a very detailed a plan that I was like, I have a plan that I want to work on and I would love to work on it with you. And I think you are the people who can help with the specific plan I have in mind. And not just, you help playwrights, I need help. Which you can do that if you want, but I think that's what helped with the specificity, was that sort of like having a strong self-awareness of the plan and awareness of how I worked as a playwright by that point, that after those years, after those series of applications, I was like, I felt I knew myself better as a writer, how I worked, and how y'all worked as well, just seeing the plays that you had developed. And I got to speak with Keiko Green, who had done a workshop previously. And so just like, I got a better understanding of what the process had been like for another playwright, and then also myself as a writer. And so I think time is a great boon for these things. But yeah, sorry if that's meandering, but.
No, that was great. Yeah, I mean, and I love that you kept flying. Like, yeah, Preston was a finalist twice, and I'm like, don't give up, and then he got it. So Yay, all of the great things. Next big question. There are so many things for playwrights to apply to. We're very aware of this. What are some ways in which they can make the process easier / save themselves time? I can start, but Larissa, it looked like you were no, okay, you're nodding for me to start.
I feel you start, you go. I can chime in if I have anything else to offer after you.
Okay. No, I mean, I feel like it is putting in the time to like research what the opportunities are and to have that to have that awareness of that, and also the awareness of like yourself, your process, and like each of your plays and where it kind of sits. You know, if there's something where it's like a very first draft that is like super raw and needing lots of work, and you know, it's an opportunity where it's like, hey, you get, you know, 2 hours with actors and then there's a public reading, like, is that really what you need from that you know, opportunity? Like, probably not. You know, there are places that charge money to apply, which can be fine. So, you know, depends. Like, we do not, but like, look into those places. Like, oh, is this a boon? Would this be of use? And I also feel like you can kind of get a sense, like, in seeing what folks have done before, like seeing other things that have come out of those programs, you sort of get a sense, like, aesthetically of like what, you know, theaters are yielding or what are coming out of programs, just to like, you know, like if you've got like really charming, realistic, like, you know, two-hander, but the spot is tending to do like big, wacky, zany, like, you know, strange magic realism, Farsi, like giant cast, like physical theater things, like that's probably like not like the right match. Or it's like, hey, if they are often looking for things for like their ensemble of actors, and their ensemble of actors is like all white folks, and you're like, here is this play with like an all Latinx cast, like maybe that's not the thing to send to them. Yeah, I mean, I think that there can be this feeling of having to like apply to everything, and I don't think that that's always the best route. You know, if you're sending something to a spot where it's just like, this is just not a good fit, and even if you were to get it, it's like, would this actually be useful to you? Yeah, but I'd love to hear what other folks. Yeah, I mean, Preston, you're a playwright. Like, I'd love to hear like how you deal with this.
No, yeah, I definitely pared back on everything I applied to, even in like the past year. I think this past year, I took a break off. I was like, you know what? Actually, looking at where my plays currently stand in my process, I don't think I would make the most of the opportunities that are available. And so I'm just going to take a step back from applying. And I think that's from just after doing enough processes, and you sort of like, okay, so this is how I operate in 15 hours of development, or this is how I operate with like a month amount of time, or over a year if there's a different variety of what the opportunity or development opportunity is. You can just sort of like look at like who are the people that you're working with, what experience do they have, sort of like, is there like a cultural touchstone that you have, is there like they've produced playwrights that you are a big fan of, that you're like, you know, you can be in communication, or like there's a sort of like a lineage of some kind, you're like, okay, they developed these kind of playwrights, I think I'm going to be one of these playwrights, so it makes sense to follow in the footsteps. Like, I think one thing you can do is sort of like stalking other playwrights' bios to see all the things they've done. And you see like, who's a playwright whose work you enjoy, and you're like, oh, they've had a career that maybe I hope to have one day, see what they've done. And sort of just like mirror for yourself, so you're not just sort of like throwing yourself everywhere, so you can be like, what do I actually want, who do I want to work with, like where do I want to work? So I think is also something to consider, because I myself, I don't spend a lot of time on the East Coast, but I knew that Scratchpad was a place that I could still work there even if I wasn't there. It would just be for a brief amount of time, but I could still spend most of my time. At the time I was living in Chicago, because I was like, that's where I wanted to be, but I knew that I wanted to still be able to not restrict myself in that way, but like be very focused in where I wanted to work, where it wasn't like having to uproot myself somewhere yet. sorry, I'm a little distracted, but I think saving yourself the time and just sort of like, yeah, I mean, it's weird, it's like do your research, like Alexis is saying, know what you're really going after with your plays. And saving yourself anguish, I think, is also, don't get too attached to opportunities that do have a small selection pool, where it's like, don't tie up a play or the idea of working on a play with getting this opportunity or not. It's great if it happens, but I think so much of the work happens on your own anyway, and can just sort of like accelerate that. I think that can also help your anguish, where it's like sometimes you can feel like if I'm not spending something, I'm missing out, and this is all these opportunities I'm not getting, so the work's not happening. Just sort of like moving yourself away from that mindset as well, that like these are necessary steps, where it's like, no, so many things are necessary. Just having a bit more distance, so that when you do send something off, it feels less precious. I think that's like removing preciousness from the whole deal. Sorry.
I so echo that. And I feel like we, in our field as a whole, we are so often looking for yeses, right? Like we just want that affirmation to say like, yeah, you're good at this thing that you do. And sometimes I feel like I apply to things like, or I have the impulse to apply to things because I'm like craving a yes. And that's usually when a yes is not going to happen, because it isn't like because it means like I'm not being specific enough about, what I'm looking for, as you both are speaking to. So yeah, I love the way that you were saying that, Preston. Yeah. And I also want to echo what you were saying about geography and the opportunities that you apply for, because it's kind of a weird thing that we, in the theater world, often fly into communities that we don't know anything about and are like, here, this is where I'm going to develop my play. And I think knowing a little bit about where you're going, where you're applying to think about who is the audience that might be coming in there to give you feedback on the work, that you'll be able to sit in a room and hear responses from, and also who the actor pool is. And I think it can be really exciting to apply to a place that has an actor pool that might be more right, where there might be like an abundance of actors who are right for your work in a way that isn't where you live. Or if you're curious about how your work speaks to an audience that's different from the one that you are used to working with or used to collaborating with, I think that those can be exciting reasons to apply for specific programs as well.
Amazing. Few more questions before we open it up to the audience. But one, and I feel like this is a great dovetail from what we were talking about, just with the horrible scarcity model, that I'm just like, no, I don't like that model. But so something we have to navigate is the fact that out of hundreds of people who apply, we're able to serve less than 10, regardless of how many people we like. So what does a rejection mean in that context? How can both us and playwrights move away from a mentality in which getting in signifies quality or worth? Yeah.
I have something about that, like long game, because I get so excited as a reader being introduced to new plays and new writers. And so even if you don't get accepted to the program, know that your work has been read by people out there who you may never have even met before, and who might be really excited about it, and who might then tell somebody else about it, and so like your work is getting out there, even if you don't get to be a part of the program that you applied for. And then also back to the thing that we keep saying about figuring out what you want to work on, that sometimes I think the application process and sitting down to figure out where you want to apply for, what the play needs, that is actually constructive in and of itself.
Yes, absolutely. Like when you submit a play somewhere, like so many people can have their eyes on it. And I've had plays that like didn't make it to like semifinals, or they didn't like, just like I sent it in and it disappeared into a void. But then someone emailed me, they were like, they're up in Seattle with small theater company, like, we read the play and we like your voice, or we like that weird thing you did, and we really want to like work with you on like this play in some way. So it's like, there's so much, it's not, that's not to say that guarantees that happens, but it's to say that like no single room of people is an arbiter of like what is good or not, and that your work can resonate with so many people. Like even just a reader, like I've read plays that stick with me, and if I ever see that playwright, I'd be like, I need to talk to you about your play, because like it's really stuck with me. And I think that's something that you can remind yourself in, that like the people making these choices are just as subjective about sort of like their taste as your taste is, and sort of like you wouldn't pick any play. It's like, yeah, it sort of like helps. I think it helps to also talk to more people who've been on the other side, or if you can be in a position to like be a reader or be something, you can sort of understand just like, oh yeah, it's so impersonal at times, and there's so many factors that are happening that like, if I try to put my sense of validation in there, it's like, it's not going to be productive, or it's like, yeah, there's nothing gained by doing that as well. It's like, there's nothing gained by being like, only the people who are good are the people who get things. Because yeah, it's just like, you have to hope there's new people, otherwise the same people get everything all the time, and it's like, what fun would that be? And I think they recognize that too. It's like everyone recognizes, it's like, they were like, oh, Preston's applied multiple times. And like, we want to say it, yes, but we don't think it's ready or right at this time or anything. But when that time comes, it's like, oh, what a lovely happenstance that it has.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would just echo what both of you are saying. Like, you usually have so many folks that have seen something if you're applying to an opportunity, and not just folks from that organization, you know, like, but like with far reach. So, you know, that's always a great thing to realize. Also, like, there are so many, again, like we got almost 1,000 submissions last year. We had like 10 playwrights. So, you know, there are so many like there's so many additional factors that are not just, is this good, you know, just so many other things that go into things, you know, and there are folks who are wonderful writers who apply multiple years and then get in, or then I'm recommending for other things too, you know, like yeah. So I think that just, yeah. I have, you both said it so much more eloquently than I have, but yeah. Amazing. Okay, 2 more questions before we open it up to the Q&A that I think we might be able to do fairly quickly. One is, how are we applying our anti-racism, anti-oppression model to the open submissions process, and what are some areas we can still grow in? Since I'm on the Realm side of things, I will take that one. You know, we always strive to have a truly like diverse range of writers that we are working with across like many backgrounds, lived experiences, intersectionalities. And a thing that we've done recently and are trying to do more and more and more is to make sure that like our reader pool is also as inclusive, as diverse. And just, you know, since we realize that like they're the gatekeepers, like, I mean, like secret, I'm not reading 1,000 plays. I'm usually like reading like 50 to 100, but like, you know, we have a pool of wonderful readers who, you know, are reading things that are then making their way up to us. So just making sure that that those pools are as diverse and inclusive as they can be, and we're always striving to continue to be better and better and better with that. So that's the answer to that question. Marissa, you look like you wanted to say something, but I can't tell if you were just nodding. Okay, cool. Amazing. And then, since not everyone is a good fit for our programs, and we can't service as many playwrights as we would want, what are some other ways for aspiring or early career playwrights to interact with us? And with that, I would say, you know, we launched our communities at like our community events, you know, platform or programming last year. We're continuing to do that. This is one of those. And, you know, keep an eye on those pages. You know, they're often panels and workshops and classes that can be really, really great ways to engage with the realm. You know, in the past, we've had this wonderful thing called Script Share, which was a great way to engage with the realm. We're still figuring out like what the future might hold, but I definitely know there are more like classes and panels and all of that stuff that is coming up. Thank you for popping that into you can check out the link that is in the chat if you wanna to sort of see what's on the horizon, and just keep looking back at that page because there are always new things being added there. And we're always really trying to think about ways that we can provide more services and access and opportunities and engagement just for the greater emerging playwright community. So yeah, great. So I am going to take some questions from the Q&A. If you reapply to the Writing Fellowship, should you send a new play? I will answer this. If you have done extensive work on what you have submitted before, and you are explaining that and like why you're reapplying and X, Y, Z and what you're thinking about and blah, 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 then I think you can. That said, I think that if one has a new play, one should use the new play. But like if you've got an old one and you've done some work on it and you again are explaining that, then I think that's fine. I generally know when things are resubmissions and we'll have a moment of like, okay, have they done work on this or are they just submitting the same thing? I don't love it when the answer is the latter versus the former. So, I mean, that's my honest answer. But again, you know, there are times that it's like, wow, they actually have like really, this feels like a new thing. They've really dug into it. So that is my answer there. How do I click that this is answered? I'm just going to keep scrolling. Do y'all have some favorite resources for expanding knowledge of places to apply? Love the advice of paying attention to both the path of other writers you like, but are there other places to find out about opportunities for new play development? Thank you so much. Anybody?
I'm trying to think. There's, yeah, I have to admit, I bio stalking is just a great early career activity, or not any career activity, just like what have you been up to? Especially if you can find bios from like older websites that haven't been updated and they might have included other things because people change their bios all the time, but new things and old things people have. But to that end, new play exchange occasionally will, like, if you put your place on there, they'll email out and be like, here, well, for that one, because you have to pay for an account. But other opportunities.
Warren Squire has, I'm trying to remember, I think I just put it in the chat, has a blog or website. I think it's called Six Perfections. You might have to Google around for it. But, and it's like the Get What You Want newsletter. So I feel like that Googling, sorry, I don't have it more, but like that Googling, and it comes out monthly, and it usually is just like a big old list of like a bunch of upcoming like opportunities and contests and whatnot. So that tends to be a good one. I know Playwright Center has one too, though I think that you might have to pay to be a Playwright Center member for that. But I know that Oren's is free, so you might just have to like Google around to find it. But it's either Six Perfections at Blogspot. It's like Get What You Want, Oren Squire, like Googling. Oh yes, thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Sophie. Wonderful guest, Sophie, has put this in a thing, but I think it just came to the panelists. So I am going to thank you, Sophie Sagan-Gunthers. There we go. So yeah, I mean, that's.
You can also like Google theaters in your area on the website to see if they have any submissions on the website, if they have opportunities, or like just like local theaters, just like Google what's around town. They might have something.
I also wouldn't hesitate to reach out to theaters. That a lot of theaters don't have open submissions for things, but they might have people that they would put you in touch with, or they might have development opportunities that they look to oftentimes. And so if you reach out to literary managers at theaters and let them know that it's a theater that you're really interested in, and you might ask about the opportunities that the writers that they work with, how they found those writers, what they've come through. Don't be afraid to, people like to give advice usually, I think.
Yeah. Amazing. What if you're not sure what is working? I may be concerned about something which may not actually be a problem, but be unaware of something else. It seems that some of this is subjective depending on the reader/viewer. Honestly, I feel like in applications, you can be honest. Like you can say, a thing that I'm questioning is the relationship between, Bob and Cheryl. Like, I'm not quite sure if it's working. I might need to hear it. And I would love to have like outside perspective on this. So I mean, I truly I think that if there are those things where what you're asking yourself is like, is this working? I'm not sure. I think that like stating that as an answer to like, what are you still thinking about, is absolutely valid and fair. Again, to be clear, like with like getting into like what folks want to work on or what they're investigating or still thinking about, like some of those can be questions. Like we're not saying it needs to be like, I know every single, like the answer to it all. I think that just knowing folks are asking the questions are great. Anything to add to that? Cool. Awesome. Thank you for doing this. Okay, in your opinions, what is the difference between a good submission/applicant and a great submission/applicant? Some submission meaning not only sample, but also statements, goals, etc. I'm gonna let someone else take the first stab at this one. Aha.
I think as far as the play itself goes, the difference, I kind of hate good, great, because that's, it's my, like Preston was saying earlier, we all have different versions of what that means. But I will say that something that makes something stand out to me is that it isn't just a solid, well-made play, but that the writer's doing something bold, that is the writer's trying something different. It doesn't even mean, oh, I've never seen this done before, but I can just see them. I can see kind of a spirit of adventurousness, whether that is in the form, whether that's in the language, whether that's in the combination of form and content, the content itself. So yeah, I think just that spirit of boldness and adventurousness and really sort of attempting something that is exciting to you. I think that is really what makes something stand out to me as far as the writing itself. And then as far as the goals statement, I think it's the more what we were talking about before, just the specificity of that and the spirit of curiosity and like that leaning into collaboration, actually, because I think that these programs are kind of about taking writing from this lonely solo thing into the thing that we like, the reason why we all work in theater, to work with each other. And so that spirit of like, I don't feel like I need to know all of the answers to these questions myself, but these are the things that I'm wondering about. And this is how I feel like being with other people might help me to solve those things. And so having that spirit and that kind of specificity, I think makes something stand out to me.
Yeah, just gonna echo all of that, sort of like, yeah, like if they're very clear about like, oh, this is why I need other people, like having that answer be really super clear. It's like, I need other people for this. I can no longer work on this by myself. Yeah, basically everything Larissa said. I was like, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, everything that Larissa and Preston just said. Yeah, I mean, it's like with the play, like, does this feel like something new, something bold, something exciting? But then also like, why do you need us? Why do you need other people? Why do you need this program for it? Does it seem like you're actually thinking about the piece and like wanting to do work on it? Yeah, like all of those things. Yes. Okay. How does the admissions process work for the fellowship in terms of rounds of semifinalists or finalists, etc.? Yeah, I mean, like things generally go through like a round of readings, then some things advance to like a second round, then things advance to a third round, and then we kind of figure out like semi-finalistdom, finalistdom. You know, the only folks that we're actually interviewing are the folks that are our finalists. So it's like when we get to, and I think that usually, I mean, I don't want to say how many finalists we, you know, it usually ranges, like it's generally like for fellowship, around 10, give or take, you know, it just, you know, yeah. And I feel like scratch pads usually around there, give or take. And then we figure out who our cohorts will be kind of based on, you know, from that pool of finalists based on those conversations. So that's kind of how that works. Yeah. Preston, this is a question for you. So Preston, based on what you said about the scratch pad asking, who are you as a writer? What would you say your experience was helpful for you in developing your voice? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think it was useful in specifying sort of like what I'm actually trying to say, where I think you should know who you are. Like, obviously this is an ever ongoing journey, but I feel like you should have a strong grasp on who you are and what you want to say. And I think what Scratchpad was very useful for, and what Playwright Realm is used for, is like, it really helps with like, how are you saying and like what specifically you're saying, where it's not really, they can't, you can learn something along the way, I think, but I think you refine what you already know, if that makes sense. I think if you go in trying to be like, figure out who you are, actually, don't know if I can speak to that, potentially because I feel like I had a strong idea of who I was and what I was trying to say, but I wasn't always sure on like how I wanted to say it. I think Scratchpad really helped me get on that journey of like, oh, I'm writing this, but maybe I should actually write this, or this is how I'm writing it, I should adjust it, like these characters or like the tone of the style, to really get across what's in my mind out onto the page. And that really helps in that sort of like transition of my voice, of like, what was on the page originally was not, I was like, oh, there's dissonance between what I'm thinking and what's actually happening. And they're really helpful in like smoothing that to be more cohesive, less bumpy ride. But bumps are okay. But it's just like, there's about like, yeah, that path, like just getting closer and closer, if that's useful.
Amazing. Next question I'm seeing is, how should you tackle the artistic statement if you were applying for an opportunity the second time? I'll take the first stab at that. Like, I mean, I think it depends on which opportunity it is. But also, I mean, I think that like we all like grow and change with time. So I feel like there might be new things you're excited about, new things you're questioning, you know, things that have, particularly if like the second time is like a now time versus the last year, you know, I feel like the past 18 months we've all aged like so many years. So, you know, I do think it's probably likely, I don't want to like assume for anyone, but like that folks have been changed by the past, you know, 18 months and might be thinking of new things. And I think that it's totally fair to say that and to acknowledge that. Like, I feel like an artistic statement should just like be representing the most up-to-date you that it can, what you're, you know, thinking about and who you are. Larissa, Preston.
On like a word thing, I think I like anything that dealt with the past that I didn't change my perspective on, I was like, oh, I can keep that because that's still true. And it's like, it's not like you have to reinvent yourself to be like, what is my new truth entirely? It's like the thing that was true that still is true, I will keep in the truth. But like you're saying with the new experiences, with like the things, because it's like the application window was like, it's a whole year has passed. like recognize that year, I think recognize that shift and see what has changed, like Alexis is saying.
And maybe also what this kind of goes back to the other thing about not having to have the answers, that part of your artistic statement can be the questions that you're currently asking yourself as an artist. So I don't know, I find it very daunting to figure out, like, with, you know, in any year, but especially maybe in the past couple years, to figure out, okay, so now what does this mean for who I am in the world now? And like, but it definitely has thrown a lot of new questions my way. And so kind of figuring out what the questions are that I'm asking might tell me as much about who I am and how I'm approaching work as an artist as being able to answer them.
Amazing. Another question. When applying to both the fellowship and Scratchpad, do you ever accept someone for both, or one and not the other? Also, what do you think someone should consider if they are on the fence about applying to both? No, we don't accept anybody for both. It would be one. We have accepted folks for one and not the other. And often, I mean, a lot of it sort of, and one can apply to both. I'm not telling folks not to, but I mean, I can bluntly say like the things that might make the decision. You know, if somebody's applying to both and they're like, I live in like New Orleans, but I would totally fly in for all fellowship meetings. No, that person is only getting considered for Scratchpad. We don't want folks to be going out of pocket to try to like transport themselves into New York. Also, just to quickly say, this is all on our site, but like we don't accept solo shows for either. So we've got a wonderful solo show that's amazing, but it's not something that WLS would be developing. Musicals aren't eligible for the fellowship, only Scratchpad. So like if someone is trying to like apply to the fellowship with a musical, like it's automatically getting only, you know, considered for Scratchpad. Folks cannot be enrolled in a full-time, like in school to do the fellowship, like at the time of the fellowship. So even if they are New York based, but like in school, that's going to Scratchpad, which is honestly true of one of our Scratchpad writers this year. And I mean, this is true of everything. Like they should be full length, not, you know, not like here's 20 pages. Because if someone is trying to tell me that a 20-page long thing, I mean, maybe it's a wonderful short evening of theater, but yeah, no. So I mean, I think that if you're on the fence about applying to both, like think about what it would make sense to apply to. You know, if there's a piece where like I am within commuting distance of New York City and it's a play and not a musical and it's not a solo show and I'm not in school, then like, and it could benefit from like 9 months of developmental time and work, then like apply to the fellowship. If not, apply to Scratchpad. I will say that writers that don't live in New York kind of get preference for Scratchpad unless they're falling into one of the considerations of like, you wouldn't be eligible for the fellowship because of XYZ, just because, you know, we do want to create more access to folks, not just in New York. And there are lots of things that are open just to New York. So that's the answer to that. Is Scratchpad submissions open to writers for theater for young audiences? I mean, so like the technical answer is yes, it is. The honest answer is I'm not sure we would ever select a play for young audiences. Like we haven't before. I don't know that we would. I don't want to never say never, but like we haven't done like TYA in Scratchpad before. So like do with that info what you will. Okay, I'm trying to like get to all the questions. So sorry if I'm like zooming through. Okay, question for Preston and Larissa. From Alejandro, I am about to graduate college and eventually apply to graduate programs in a couple of years. Do you recommend UCSD? I forgot you're both UCSD. All the things. UCSD, why? How does it differ from other graduate playwriting programs? How was the school impacted your playwriting career? Well, Larissa, you were there for directing a while ago, and Preston, you're there for playwriting now. Preston, you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, just briefly. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still in the middle of it, so I'm still figuring out. It's like I will say it operates kind of more like a residency and less like formal like playwriting education. So programs, but I think yeah, the fact that you're just graduating, I'd say yeah, take that time, take those years. Um, yeah, so many things can change, and I'd say definitely like spend some time away from an academic setting and see if you really want to go back into it before applying.
Yeah, it was a while. I graduated in 2012, so Preston's insight on the program is much more relevant. But I mean, one of the reasons I chose UCSD as a director was because of the emphasis on new work and because we got a chance to work to collaborate with people in all areas. So there were directing MFAs, playwriting MFAs, acting MFAs, design MFAs, stage management MFAs, and we all worked together on throughout our time there, but especially on a new play festival. And that was really exciting to me. And I love the playwrights who were there when I was there and still love working with them whenever that's possible. So I think that the experience of having those resources and being able to meet people that you potentially work really well with and have a chance to collaborate with them, those are lifetime relationships, and that's amazing. But I completely also agree with Preston about taking the time to be in the world a little bit and figure out what it is that you still want to know, so that you also know what program can be the right fit for you if you decide to go to grad school.
Great. Another question from Emma. I feel like as a writer applying to opportunities and reaching out to theaters, it's hard to express my desire to reach production, and workshopping can help reach that goal. Do you have any advice for how to address that? So I think the question is like how to address when reaching out to theaters, like expressing how workshopping and production could kind of help the play. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I feel like bluntly, like it is expensive for a theater to produce a play. It is expensive to do like a workshop of a show. And I feel like if it's also something where you're not applying to like an opportunity, like if you're reaching out directly to a theater and it's not necessarily for like an opportunity where they're like, with this, you get a workshop, with this, you get a production, but it's more just like, hi theater, I want to get to know you. I think just start with the like, I want to get to know you and let them get to know you, because I feel like that's how those other things come up. And you can talk about the things that you're excited about and you're working on, and like, oh yeah, I heard this with friends, and at a point it would be so great to hear it with, like, you can like dangle the carrot like in a bigger setting or whatnot. But I feel like if it's somebody you don't know, like kind of going in with like that direct ask isn't probably not going to go anywhere. Like, again, there's a difference if you're applying to an opportunity where like to the Scratchpad series or to the fellowship or something where it's like, this is part of this opportunity with these open submissions. But if you're talking more like cold reaching out to theaters, I think it's more just reaching out to be like, this is why I'm excited about you as a company. I would love to hear more and tell you a little bit about me. And then just like kind of keep in touch, continue to invite them to things, let them know what you're up to. And like at a point, like you might get to that point, but I don't think that's the first ask. I don't know, Larissa, Preston, what do you think?
Oh, go ahead, Preston. You go. I will say I agree with that, but I will say also, like, I had an experience early on where I reached out to a director whose work I really admired, and asked her if I could take her out for coffee, which I did. And then we had a great conversation. And then she said, "What can I do for you?" And I realized that it hadn't even occurred to me that I could ask for something. And so I do think, if you have ideas about something that, if a theater can help put you in touch with somebody whose work that, really speaks to you, if there are things, if you the question that happened earlier about how do I find out about opportunities? Maybe that's the ask. Maybe it's, what are the opportunities that you know of? How do you find out about writers? What would be good things for me to get involved in? Yeah, I think having some specific questions and specific asks, as long as you don't expect it, as long as it's not a demand and you don't, it's not like, I expect you to give me a reading tomorrow or full production by next year. Just asking for things and knowing what you want. That I think sometimes helping people help you can be helpful.
Absolutely. And to connect with that story of in undergrad, I emailed LURY because she was in town for King of the Yees at the Goodman. And I was like, I have a class assignment where we read playwrights work and we interview them. I was just like, what if I just interviewed LURY? So I just sent a very sort of polite, kind email being like, I know you're very busy, you're in rehearsals. Can I, would it be possible to meet with you at all and talk with you? Because I have this specific play that you're writing a family play and I would love to talk to you about experience. And she was very kind and welcoming. She said, come on down to rehearsal. And then she just answered all the questions so graciously. And then was also just sort of like, so here are all the Asian artists that I know in this town that you should probably get to know as well. And she was she was very good about just being as sort of a caretaker of sort of the generation or the people that are coming afterwards, being a good steward, which I think you can always do at any time. But yeah, I think that's also don't be afraid to ask. That just like Larissa was saying, politely, and don't make it a demand. But yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Are we cool if we try to get through the final 3 questions? I think I could bang 2 of them out very quick and the third one. All right. All right. So no more questions in the thing, please, but we will get to the ones that are already in there. How do I get in your pool of writers as an international applicant? Do you consider people outside the States or Canada? So the answer to that is we did have international scratch pad this past year. We are, alas, not doing it next year. It might return in the future. But alas, this coming year, there aren't those opportunities, but stay tuned, that is not to say that will not change down the line. And again, all of the community at those panels and workshops and stuff like that, Zoom things, keep an eye on those because those folks can be anywhere for them. How can one apply to be a reader? I will put in the chat, you can email artistic at, if you are curious. We have a form we ask folks to fill out where we ask for resume, thoughts on things they've seen recently. It's fairly extensive since we, really do want to make sure that we've got super smart, savvy, wonderful readers. But if you are interested in hearing more, just getting that form and being in the consideration pool, how do we spell this? Artistic at Playwrights Realm. Then you can email artistic at playwrightsrealm.org. You check it frequently-ish, but we're checking it more frequently now that open subs are afoot. So just shoot an email there. And as I'm about to graduate from graduate school for dramatic writing, what's intimidating is trying to get that first place for residencies / productions to get the ball rolling. What would you recommend to look at regarding the first big step outside of an academic sphere? And is the writing fellowship suitable for someone in my position? So the answer is yes, the fellowship is definitely suitable for someone in your position. I mean, the other question is if you are within commuting distance of New York, there are a ton of organizations that have great things to apply to. Some of the lists we put in the chat, I'm sure we'll list them, but I will also say this really quickly. If Ying, if you're able to follow me and add this to the chat, amazing. If not, everybody get your pens ready. P73 has I73, which is their writers group, which is great. Ars Nova has Play Group, which is great. I think the public still has Emerging Writers Group, but if they do, that is something that does that. For folks under 30, you've got Ensemble Studio Theater and Youngblood. Who am I forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting things. But a lot of these are probably in the big lists that are listing opportunities and are for early career folks, but I feel like I'm forgetting somebody big that has a thing.
The Playwrights Center, not New York based, but
Playwright Center Jerome Fellowship. Yeah, if one is willing to go and relocate to Minneapolis for a year, their programs are wonderful. They give such great support. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like those are some. Yeah.
There are also theater companies that have writers groups. Mayi, you mentioned Youngbloods. Who else? I feel like there's so many.
Yeah. I know, it's like
very, very sad that the LARC. Yeah, sad that there's no more LARC.
Right. Yeah. No, agreed.
We also, I will say, every other year.
Yes, New York Theater Workshop 2050. Yes, thank you. I knew there was one. Thank you, Andrea. Let me put this in the. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Larissa.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, at NMSU, where I teach every other year, we don't have a full panel of readers, so we can't do open submissions, but we reach out to playwrights every other year and then bring a couple playwrights in to workshop their plays with our students. So that has its own, it's for our students also. So it's a little different from a program that's purely designed around developing your work. But if that's something that you're interested in, please email me, and I can put my email in the chat too.
Amazing. Preston, anything to log up? I mean, if not, it's fine.
No, I mean, I think the things that brought me to production is just sort of like the relationships I've built with certain theaters just over time. And it was like, I think it was a house manager for a bit in Chicago at a venue that had a lot of small theater companies, a lot of storefront theater. I'm a big fan of Chicago storefront theater, as much as there's like all sorts of things going on with it. But there's just like working with theaters and getting to know them, not as a player, but just as like someone who's a theater artist, collaborating and talking with them, building those relationships are ways towards productions as well. Just being like, instead of being like, here's my play, you're like, here I am, I'm an artist, do we think we can work together? Is the mission I'm doing with my work in line with the mission that you as your theater are doing? And also I can put my email as well if folks want to ask like school specific questions. I'm happy to hear anything or everything you have.
The O'Neill as well.
Yes.
And I will say also that, I lost my train of thought. If it comes back, I'll come back.
Amazing. No, this is great. And honestly, I feel like so much of what you're both saying around like getting to know folks that were like, they might be like-minded, be it theaters, be it directors, be it actors, and just, forging those relationships truly is, I feel like a great thing to do to start to, when you find like your kindred spirits, and relationships only grow over time. All right, we got through all the questions. I feel like that's that. I don't know if, okay, great. I'm like, do I have to do any wrap up? But it doesn't look like I do. So I'm just going to say thank you so much, Larissa. Thank you, Preston. Thank you, everyone out there, for joining and for tuning in to us, I don't know, kind of confabbing on submissions. And have a great afternoon, evening, morning, whatever, wherever you are. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
No cigarette in the waiting room, only chairs and magazines, and a